This is the Applied Reasoning Skills introductory video for Module 4, Leadership Teams and Ethics. And for this module, we will cover the process of identifying the continuity of response. So this builds on the applied reasoning topics for the past 3 modules, which together make up the 4 case study characteristics for the class. First is the general principles of the case. Second, we covered the specific circumstance. Third, the evolution of the case, and finally, the continuity of the response. So it's one thing to adapt to a change, as we discussed in Module 3. It is quite another thing to cope successfully with the continuous change and adaptation, to correctly manage the conduct of professional skills in the middle of a situation that just won't stop evolving. So as the special case study for this week shows, when project circumstances and role expectations continue to evolve, regardless of through slow shifts or through a sudden new situation, and regardless of the duration of that evolution, professionals are expected to track and to act in accordance with the updated reality of the situation and the implications of it. So what might be true at one point in time during the evolution of the case may not be true at a later date. So regarding the applied skills for Module 4 and demonstrating them, the Module 4 discussion will focus on keeping up with change in an evolving case study as we look at this 4th case study characteristic. Continuity of response, including the effort, monitoring, and awareness of it. This characteristic is otherwise known as paying attention and not dropping the ball. So this particular characteristic further implies knowing where the ball is, whose court it's in, and whose it should be in, knowing when it's in your court, even if no one's there to tell you so, and knowing that it's possible and even easy for you or anyone else involved to drop the ball or to drop several of them at any time and in any venue. So the discussion for this module will focus on the 2 readings covering the Citicorp Tower incident, the original 59-story crisis article, and the re-examination article. This case study is complex enough to allow us to use all 4 of the case study characteristics to analyze what happened and why, and further to examine the many ways in which one professional continuously redefined his professional judgment to handle the case, for better or for worse. Additionally, the ability to use 2 different sources for this case study allows us to look at another aspect of analyzing case studies for the reasoning and judgment used therein. Frequently, the apparent validity of the reasoning and the sufficiency of the continuity of the response can vary dramatically with how the information is presented to you, essentially how the story is told and who's telling it. So how the story is told can actually affect professionals on 2 fronts, in real time and in retrospect. In real time, how you describe the situation to others can impact your ability to lead them effectively. But for the Module 4 discussion, how you describe the chain of events in retrospect is pivotal to the judgments of reasoning, sufficiency, and continuity that we will make. So importantly, there are different ways to tell the story. One of those is chronologically, and the other is as a narrative. So the analytical importance of an actual date-based listed chronology is that it makes it easier to make a solid argument with than the more typical approach of a narrative, which may tell an interesting story, but can sometimes rearrange the timing of chronological events for a rhetorical purpose. Importantly, a narrative can sometimes give the false impression of clarity of knowledge or priority that was not actually there when the events first transpired, i.e., the fatal flaw of the bolted joints was just a mundane fact that was inconsequential and ignorable when Lemessurier first heard of it. Had he not been subsequently paying attention, the outcome of the story may have been far worse. In the absence of a chronology, a counter-narrative, like the re-examination article that we're looking at, can also help by prompting questions or suggesting other interpretations known popularly as messing with your story. So as you look at the case study readings for this module, and you are working to develop the continuity of response, taking into account your organization of the facts, you have to keep these things in mind about how the story is told and how those things impact your interpretation of the narrative. And we'll discuss this more together in class.